Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Resilience, his weathered face lit by the glow of countless stars. The massive view screen showed their target, a gleaming space station that seemed to float like a jewel against the black of space. This was the heart of the Galactic Council, the very same group that had banished humanity 800,000 years ago. "Status report," Morrison said, his voice calm despite the weight of the moment. Lieutenant Susan Blackwell looked up from her. "Console, all systems normal, sir. Our fleet is in position. The Council hasn't detected us yet." Morrison nodded. 50 human ships had just emerged from fold space, using technology the Council races couldn't understand. This wasn't how things were supposed to go, according to the aliens who had judged humanity all those centuries ago. Humans were meant to stay trapped in their solar system, never to advance or expand. The Council had called humans too violent, too unpredictable, and too dangerous to join the galactic community. But the Council had made a mistake. They had left humans alone with their creativity and determination intact. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Greg Lewis, "we're getting some strange readings from the station. I think they've spotted us." Morrison allowed himself a small smile. Of course they have. Hard to miss 50 ships appearing out of nowhere. The exile hadn't broken humanity. Instead, it had forced humans to look inward, to develop technologies that worked differently from what the Council used. Quantum mechanics, dimensional folding, and finally the greatest achievement, they had found a way to move their entire solar system. The Council's decree had forbidden humans from leaving their solar system, but nothing prevented them from bringing the solar system with them. "They're hailing us, sir," said Lewis, surprise evident in his voice. "Audio and visual." "Put it on, screen," Morrison ordered, straightening his uniform. The view screen changed to show an alien face. The creature had pale blue skin, large black eyes, and no visible nose. This was a Veluxian, one of the oldest Council races. "Unidentified vessels," the alien spoke in a high-pitched voice. "You have entered restricted Council space. Identify yourselves immediately." Morrison stepped forward. "This is Admiral Jack Morrison of the United Earth Fleet. We request an audience with the Galactic Council." The alien's eyes widened. "Impossible. The human species is confined to the Sol system by Council decree." "As you can see," Morrison replied, gesturing to the space around them, "that is no longer the case. We have respected your exile for $800,000 years. Now we have returned and we expect to be heard." The alien seemed to struggle for words. Finally, it said, "Wait for further instructions." And the screen went dark. "That went well," said Lieutenant Blackwell with a hint of sarcasm. Morrison turned to face his crew. They were the best Earth had to offer. Scientists, soldiers, and diplomats chosen for this historic mission. "They're going to keep us waiting. It's a power play. Let them think it's working." On the lower deck of the Resilience, Ambassador Olivia Wright was preparing for the coming negotiations. She studied her notes one last time while her aide, Frank Johnson, paced nervously beside her. "Do you think they'll attack?" Johnson asked, glancing at the ceiling as if he could see through it to the alien station. Wright shook her head. "No, they're too curious now. They want to know how we broke their exile, and more importantly, they want to know why we've returned." The truth was complex. During their isolation, humans had not just survived, they had thrived. Their understanding of physics had grown beyond anything the Council races could imagine. Time and space had become malleable concepts to human scientists, and with these advances came discoveries that changed everything. "Ambassador," a voice came through the ship's communication system. "The Admiral requests your presence on the bridge." When Wright arrived, Morrison was standing before the view screen again. This time it showed not one but 7 different alien species, the Core Council. "We have agreed to receive a small delegation," announced the Veluxian from earlier. "You may send 3 representatives to the Council chamber." Morrison nodded. "Ambassador Wright will lead our delegation, along with Science Director Peter Hayes and Security Chief Maria Diaz." The aliens conferred briefly among themselves before agreeing. A shuttle will be sent to guide you to the docking bay. Any aggressive actions will be met with immediate force. After the transmission ended, Morrison turned to Wright. This is and everything we've planned for. Wright nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. They think we're here for revenge. Let them think that for now, Morrison replied. It gives us leverage. 2 hours later, Wright, Hayes, and Diaz stood in an ornate chamber unlike anything humans had built. The ceiling arched hundreds of feet above them, covered in shifting patterns of light that seemed to tell stories in a language no human could read. Around them, representatives from dozens of alien species watched from tiered seating. Humans, the Veluxian spoke from a raised platform. You stand before this council in violation of Exiled Decree 7294, issued 800,000 standard years ago. How do you explain your presence? Wright stepped forward. Unlike the aliens with their flowing robes and ornate decorations, she wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's new emblem, a spiral galaxy with a small arrow pointing to one edge. Honorable Council, she began, her voice clear and strong. We come not as violators but as fulfillers of your decree. You ordered humanity to evolve beyond our violent tendencies before we could rejoin galactic society. We have done so. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Traxian representative, a being with 4 arms and green skin, leaned forward. Your arrival in warships suggests otherwise. Wright smiled. We come prepared, not aggressive. In our absence, we've developed technologies you cannot scan or understand. We've mastered sciences your species haven't discovered, and we've learned something that changes everything, something that threatens not just humanity but all life in this galaxy. The chamber fell silent. This was not what they had expected. The Veluxian spoke again, suspicion clear in its voice. What threat do you claim to have discovered? Wright looked at Hayes, who activated a small device in his hand. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber, a swirling mass of darkness that seemed to devour the light around it. We called it the Dark Flow, Wright said. And it's coming for us all. Silence filled the council chamber as the hologram of the Dark Flow rotated slowly in the air. The alien representative stared at the swirling darkness with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Science Director Peter Hayes stood confidently beside Ambassador Wright, his hand steady as he controlled the projection. This is impossible, said the Traxian representative, its 4 arms moving in agitation. Our sensors would have detected such a phenomenon. Hayes shook his head. Not with your current technology. The Dark Flow exists partially outside normal spacetime. We only discovered it because our dimensional research took an unexpected turn. Security Chief Maria Diaz watched the aliens carefully, her hand never far from the small device on her belt. It wasn't a weapon. Humans had promised to come unarmed, but it could transport all 3 of them back to their ship in an instant if needed. The Veluxian leader leaned forward on its hovering platform. Even if this threat is real, why should we believe humans? Your species was exiled for your deception and violence. Wright stepped closer to the hologram. We don't ask for your trust. We ask for your verification. Allow your scientists to examine our data. Send your ships to the coordinates we provide. See for yourselves. Murmurs spread through the chamber as the council members discussed among themselves. Finally, the Veluxian spoke again. We will form a committee to examine your claims. Until then, your ships must remain at a safe distance from our station. Agreed, Wright said. But time is short. The Dark Flow is accelerating. As the human delegation was escorted from the chamber, an Arcturian observer approached them in the corridor. The tall, thin alien had skin that seemed to shift colors like oil on water. Ambassador Wright, the Arcturian said quietly. I am Chief Scientist Enzol. I would like to speak privately with your team. Wright exchanged glances with Hayes and Diaz before nodding. We're listening. Not here, Enzol said, looking around nervously. Some of us have detected anomalies. Similar to what you described. The council leadership dismissed our concerns, but your data might confirm our fears. Back on the USS Resilience, Admiral Morrison listened intently as Wright reported their meeting with the Arcturian scientist. "So some of them already know," Morrison said, pacing the conference room. "They suspect," Wright corrected, "but their technology isn't advanced enough to properly analyze what they're seeing. We're still 8 steps ahead." Lieutenant Blackwell entered the room with a data pad. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. The solar shield is operating at 90% capacity. They estimate full protection within 48 hours. Morrison nodded. 800,000 years was the number humans gave to the Council, but for Earth itself, much less time had passed. The temporal displacement, technology, moving not just through space but through time itself, had been humanity's greatest achievement. What seemed like eons to the galaxy had been just under 1,000 years for humans. "What about the test fleet?" Morrison asked. "In position near the edge of the dark flow," Blackwell replied. "They're ready to deploy the containment field on your command." Morrison turned to the view screen showing the Council station. "And our special project?" Hayes spoke up from his seat at the conference table. "Ready for demonstration when needed, though I hope it won't come to that." On the Council station, debates raged among the representatives. The Zentabian delegate, a crystalline being that caught and reflected light in dazzling patterns, addressed the chamber. "The humans claim to have moved their entire solar system. This is beyond any technology we possess. If true, they have evolved far beyond our expectations." "Or they're lying," countered the Felbian representative, its feathered crest rising in agitation. "This could be the first step in a human invasion." In a secure laboratory on the lower level of the station, Enzol and a small team of scientists from different species examined the data provided by Hayes. The Arcturian's color had paled to a sickly gray. "These readings match what we detected near the galactic core," Enzol said to his colleagues. "But the humans have much more detailed information. According to this, the dark flow will reach populated systems within 50 years. A Meridian scientist whose body consisted of interconnected floating spheres moved closer to the display. "The containment solution they propose, is it viable?" "Theoretically," Enzol replied, "but it would require technology we don't have." "Which the humans do," finished the Meridian. The next day, the human delegation was summoned back to the Council chamber. This time, the mood was different. Many of the representatives looked worried, some angry. The Veluxian leader wasted no time. "Our scientists have verified your data. The threat appears to be real. But there are those among us who question your motives. Why return now after so long? Why not contact us earlier about this threat?" Wright had prepared for this question. The exile was absolute. Any attempt to communicate would have been seen as aggression, and we only recently developed the means to move our entire solar system safely. This wasn't entirely true, but it was what the Council needed to hear. "You wish to help us," the Traxian said, clearly skeptical, "after we cast you out." Diaz stepped forward, speaking for the first time. "We're not here for revenge. We're here for survival, yours and ours." Hayes activated another hologram. This one showed a network of devices forming a sphere around a portion of space. "This is our proposed containment system. It creates a dimensional barrier around the dark flow, preventing it from expanding further, but the deployment requires precise positioning across multiple star systems, including some within Council space." The Council chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Some demanded immediate action, others warned of a human trick. Through it all, Wright stood calmly, waiting. Finally, the Veluxian raised a hand for silence. "We must deliberate, but first, we wish to see your technology in action." Demonstration. Morrison received the request on the bridge of the Resilience. He turned to Blackwell with a grim smile. "It seems they want proof. Signal the test fleet. It's time to show them what humanity can do." As the Council watched through long-range sensors, 5 human ships took position around an uninhabited star system near the edge of Council space. What happened next would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The 5 human ships moved into position around the uninhabited star system. Captain Ryan Porter sat in the command chair of the USS Defiance, the lead vessel for this demonstration. His crew worked quietly, each person aware of how much rode on the next few minutes. "All ships report ready, sir," said Lieutenant Paul Rivera from the operations console. Porter nodded. "Begin synchronization of the horizon drives." On the main view screen, the other 4 ships glowed with a faint blue light as their advanced engines powered up. The horizon drive was humanity's greatest achievement, a technology that allowed them to manipulate the very fabric of space-time. Synchronization complete, Rivera reported. "Awaiting your command." Porter took a deep breath. "Initiate Horizon Protocol Alpha." Blue light erupted from each of the 5 ships, forming beams that stretched out and connected to each other. Within seconds, a pentagon of energy surrounded the star system. The light pulsed once, twice, and then stabilized. "Phase 1 complete," Rivera said. "Moving to Phase 2. Inside the pentagon, the star and its planets remained visible, but something about them changed. They seemed to shift slightly, as if viewed through rippling water. Porter pressed a button on his chair. "This is Captain Porter to Admiral Morrison. Phase 1 and 2 complete. The star system is now dimensionally isolated." On the council station, the alien representatives watched in stunned silence as the human technology did something they had thought impossible. The entire star system now existed in a slightly different phase of reality, still visible, but separated from the normal universe. "Remarkable," whispered Enzol, the Arcturian scientist. "They've created a dimensional bubble." Ambassador Wright stood with the council leaders, watching their reactions carefully. "This is a small-scale demonstration of the technology we propose to use against the dark flow. The same principles, but on a much larger scale." The Veluxian leader's large eyes blinked rapidly. "You can isolate entire regions of space?" "We can," Wright confirmed, "and more. Watch the final phase." On the view screen, the human ships adjusted their positions. The pentagon of energy changed color from blue to gold. Then, slowly at first, but with increasing speed, the star system inside the pentagon began to move. The entire system, star and all, shifting through space as one unit. "Impossible," breathed the Traxian representative. Science Director Hayes smiled. "Not impossible. Just beyond your current science. We're moving the entire system by shifting its dimensional coordinates. This is how we brought our solar system to you." The council chamber erupted in voices again, some afraid, others demanding. The Veluxian raised all 4 of its hands for silence. "This power, it could be used as a weapon," the Veluxian said. Chief Maria Diaz spoke up. "Any technology can be a weapon in the wrong hands. We're offering it as a solution, a way to contain the dark flow and save billions of lives." Back on the USS Defiance, Porter received new orders from Morrison. "Prepare for final demonstration phase," Porter told his crew. "Let's show them what happens when the containment field collapses in a controlled manner." The 5 ships moved, again changing the shape of the energy pentagon. The golden light flickered and then began to fade. "Field collapse in 10 seconds, Rivera announced. "All ships maintaining safe distance." As the field disappeared, the star system snapped back into normal space. But it wasn't in the same position. The entire system had been moved several light years from its original location. "Demonstration complete," Porter said. "Return to standard formation." On the council station, the alien representatives could hardly believe what they had witnessed. A few were huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. Others stared at the humans with new respect and fear. The Veluxian approached Wright. "Your technology is beyond anything we expected. The council needs time to discuss what we have seen." Wright nodded. "We understand, but remember the dark flow won't wait. Every day it grows stronger." As the human delegation returned to their shuttle, Enzol hurried to join them. The Arcturian looked around to make sure no one was watching. "Ambassador," Enzol said quietly, "there is something you should know. A faction within the council believes your return is part of a prophecy, one that has been kept secret for thousands of years." Wright exchanged glances with Hayes and Diaz. "What prophecy?" It speaks of a banished race returning at the galaxy's darkest hour, Enzol explained. Some believe this prophecy refers to humans, others fear it. That is why there is such division about how to respond to you. Back on the USS Resilience, Admiral Morrison listened carefully as Wright relayed Enzol's information. A prophecy? Morrison frowned. That complicates things. Lieutenant Blackwell entered with a data pad. Sir, we're receiving new data from the scout ships monitoring the dark flow. It's expanding faster than our models predicted. We may have less time than we thought. Morrison studied the data, and his face grew grim. Call the fleet commanders. We need to prepare for the possibility that the Council will refuse our help. In her quarters, Ambassador Wright studied ancient Council texts that Enzol had secretly provided. The prophecy was unclear in parts, written in symbolism and metaphor, but certain passages stood out. The exiled ones shall return when darkness flows between the stars. They shall bend space and time to their will. Their coming shall herald either salvation or destruction for all. Wright rubbed her tired eyes. 800,000 years ago, the Council had feared humanity's potential for violence. Now they feared humanity's advanced technology. Some things never changed. On the Council station, debate continued late into the night. The Zentabian representative's crystalline form glittered as it addressed the others. We cannot ignore what we have seen, the Zentabian said. The humans possess technology that could save us all from the dark flow, but that same technology could also destroy us if they wished. Can we trust them? Asked the Felbian. After all this time, can we believe they come in peace? The Veluxian leader remained silent for a long moment. Then it said, perhaps the question is not whether we can trust them, but whether we can afford not to. The dark flow is real. Their technology works. What choice do we have? As dawn broke across the station's artificial day cycle, the Council reached its decision. They would allow the humans to deploy their containment technology, but under strict Council supervision. A joint operation would be formed with representatives from both humanity and the Council races. What none of them realized was that the dark flow was more than just a natural phenomenon. Something ancient and intelligent lurked within that swirling darkness, something that had been waiting for humanity's return just as much as the Council had feared it. 3 days after the demonstration, a joint Human Council task force gathered on the massive station. Director Laura Bennett of Earth's Diplomatic Corps led the human delegation. She was older than Ambassador Wright, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Beside her stood Chief Engineer Nicole Harris, whose team had designed the containment system that would be used against the dark flow. The Council had sent representatives from 7 different species. The Veluxian leader introduced them one by one, ending with Enzol, the Arcturian scientist who had secretly helped the humans. Now that formalities are complete, Bennett said, let's discuss the operation. Harris activated a holographic display showing the edge of the dark flow. Our plan requires 17 containment points spread across this region of space. Each point needs a fleet of 5 ships equipped with horizon drives. The Traxian representative leaned forward. And how many of these special ships do humans have? Enough, Bennett replied simply. But we'll need Council help to monitor the containment field once it's established. The meeting continued for hours as they worked out details. Which ships would go where? How Council observers would be stationed on human vessels? What information would be shared? Trust was thin on both sides, but the growing threat of the dark flow forced cooperation. As the meeting ended, Enzol approached Harris. Engineer Harris, I have studied your containment plans. There is something I don't understand. The energy requirements seem excessive. Harris hesitated before answering. The calculations are correct. Yes, but Enzol's skin shifted to a deep purple, indicating concern. The power needed is far beyond what your ships could generate, even with technology as advanced as yours. Harris glanced around to ensure no one was listening. You're right. There's something we haven't told the Council yet. Come with me. On the USS Resilience, Admiral Morrison and Captain Porter reviewed the final deployment plans when Harris arrived. With Enzol. Sir, Harris said, Enzol has figured out the power discrepancy. I think it's time we showed the truth. Morrison studied the Arcturian for a long moment, then nodded. Take him to the engine room. Deep within the Resilience, Enzol stared, in wonder at the ship's true power source. It wasn't like any engine room on Council vessels. Instead of the expected machinery, the chamber contained what looked like a small star, contained within layered fields of energy. What is this? Enzol whispered. We call it a pocket universe. Harris explained. A self-contained reality with its own physical laws. We use it to generate virtually unlimited power. Enzol's color shifted rapidly as he processed this information. This technology, it's beyond anything I imagined. Why haven't you shared this with the Council? Because some secrets are too dangerous, Morrison said from the doorway. If this technology fell into the wrong hands, it could destroy entire star systems. Enzol turned to face the Admiral. The Council should know what they're dealing with. And they will, Morrison replied. When the time is right. That night, while most of the human fleet prepared for the operation, a small shuttle departed silently from the Resilience. Lieutenant Blackwell piloted the craft away from the Council station toward a distant point in space. Course set, Admiral, she reported. ETA 3 hours. Morrison nodded. Good. Any signs we're being followed? None, sir. The cloaking system is working perfectly. In the passenger compartment, Science Director Hayes worked on a complex set of calculations. The shuttle was heading for a region where human sensors had detected something unusual, a pattern within the dark flow that shouldn't exist. When they arrived, Hayes stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. It's confirmed, sir. There's a structure inside the dark flow, something artificial. Morrison's face remained calm, but his eyes hardened. As we suspected, this is no natural phenomenon. The pattern matches nothing in our databases, Hayes continued. But it's definitely a construct of some kind, and it's... Sir, it's sending out a signal. Can you decode it? Hayes worked furiously at his console. It's complex, but... Yes, I think I can. It appears to be a countdown. Back at the Council station, preparations for the joint operation continued. Engineer Harris supervised as human technology was installed on Council monitoring ships. Will this interface with our systems? Asked a Zentabian technician. It's crystalline, form reflecting the blue light of the human equipment. Yes, Harris replied. This adapter will translate our data feeds into a format your computers can understand. What she didn't mention was the secondary program hidden within the adapter, a program that would allow humans to override Council systems if necessary. Director Bennett met with the Veluxian leader in private. Their discussion was tense, but productive. The operation would begin the next day with 55 human ships and 30 Council vessels forming a containment net around the advancing edge of the dark flow. There is still much your people haven't shared with us, the Veluxian said as their meeting ended. Bennett smiled thinly. Just as there is much the Council hasn't shared with us. Trust takes time. Time we may not have, the Veluxian replied. When the shuttle returned to the Resilience, Morrison immediately called an emergency meeting with Wright, Bennett, and the other human leaders. The situation has changed, he told them gravely. The dark flow isn't a natural event, it's a weapon or a side effect of one, and based on the signal Hayes detected, whoever created it knows we're here. Wright frowned. Could it be connected to the prophecy Enzol mentioned? Possibly, Morrison said. But there's more. The countdown Hayes decoded gives us less than a week before something happens. Something big. Bennett leaned forward. Do we tell the Council? Morrison was silent for a moment. No, not yet. If we tell them now, they'll panic. We need them focused on the containment operation. That buys us time to learn more about what we're really facing. As dawn broke on the day of the operation, ships from both fleets moved into position. On the bridge of the Resilience, Morrison watched as the deployment proceeded according to plan. Phase 1 complete, reported Lieutenant Blackwell. All ships in position. Begin Phase 2, Morrison ordered. Across the deployment zone, human ships activated their horizon drives. Beams of energy stretched between them. forming a vast network that would become the containment field. Unknown to the Council, each human ship also carried a secondary mission objective, a set of quantum sensors designed to gather more data about the structure hidden within the dark flow. As the containment field began to take shape, alarms suddenly blared across the Resilience! Sir! Blackwell called out. Something's happening inside the dark flow. It's changing. On the view screen, the swirling darkness seemed to pulse with new energy. And at its center, barely visible through the chaos, something massive was moving toward them. The massive shape moving inside the dark flow grew clearer as it approached the edge of the containment field. It was a ship, or something like a ship, larger than anything humans or the Council races had ever built. Its surface seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making its true size hard to judge. All ships, hold positions, Admiral Morrison ordered, his voice calm despite the growing tension. Maintain the containment field. On the Council station, panic spread as their sensors detected the enormous object. The Veluxian leader called, "An emergency meeting of all representatives." "What is that thing?" demanded the Traxian, its forearms waving in agitation. "Did the humans know about this?" Ambassador Wright stood before them, her face showing no fear. "We suspected something was controlling the dark flow, but we didn't know what. Now we all see the truth." The giant vessel stopped just short of the containment field. For several long minutes nothing happened. Then, without warning, a beam of dark energy shot from the ship toward the field. Where it struck, the blue energy flickered and dimmed. "It's testing the field," Engineer Harris reported from her station on the Resilience, "trying to find a weakness." Morrison turned to Communications Officer Lewis. "Send a message to that ship. All frequencies, all languages we know." Lewis worked at his console. "Message sent, sir. No response yet." On the USS Defiance, Captain Porter watched the strange ship with growing concern. "What do you think it is?" he asked his science officer. "Based on its interaction with the dark flow," the officer replied, "I'd say it's been hidden in there for a very long time. Possibly centuries, maybe longer." Porter studied the readings. "And now it's coming out. Why now?" The answer came moments later when a signal reached all ships in the area, human and Council alike. It wasn't a voice or a message in any language they knew. Instead, it was a series of images that appeared directly in their minds. The images showed Earth 800,000 years ago. They showed aliens, not any Council species, but something older, watching humans from orbit. They showed these ancient beings retreating as humanity expanded into space, withdrawing into what would become the dark flow. And they showed humans being exiled by the Council, which had discovered only part of the truth. "They were afraid of us," Wright whispered as the images flowed through her mind. "These beings predate the Council. They saw what humanity might become, and they hid." The final image was of the present moment, the containment field, the human, ships, the Council station, and a question, not in words but in feeling. "What will you do now?" Morrison understood immediately. "They think we've come for revenge, against them and the Council." In the Council chamber, the alien representatives were shaken by what they had seen. The Veluxian turned to Wright. "Is this true? Did your people know about these ancient ones?" "No," Wright answered honestly. "We discovered the dark flow and came to stop it. We didn't know what caused it." The Zentabian representative's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. "But the ancient prophecy spoke of your return. It called you either saviors or destroyers." Wright looked at the massive ship still hovering at the edge of the containment field. "I think that choice is being offered to us now." On the Resilience, Morrison faced the most important decision of his life. The ancient ship was vastly powerful. The images it had shared suggested it had technology even beyond what humans had developed. If humanity chose aggression, it might defend itself, and billions could die in the resulting conflict. "Sir," Lieutenant Blackwell said quietly, "the containment field is weakening where that energy beam hit it. We need to either strengthen it or make contact, Morrison finished. He stood up. Prepare a shuttle. I'm going out there. Science Director Hayes looked alarmed. Admiral, we don't know if that's safe. It's not, Morrison agreed. But sometimes leadership means taking risks. The small shuttle left the Resilience with Morrison aboard, accompanied only by Lieutenant Blackwell as pilot. As they approached the edge of the containment field, the beam from the ancient ship stopped. They're watching us, Blackwell said. Morrison nodded. Open a channel, all frequencies. He spoke clearly into the communication system. This is Admiral Jack Morrison of Earth. We come in peace. We seek understanding, not revenge. For a long moment, there was no response. Then a section of the dark ship's hull seemed to dissolve, creating an opening. A beam of soft light extended from it toward their shuttle. I think that's an invitation, Morrison said. Take us in, Lieutenant. As the shuttle entered the ancient vessel, Council and human ships alike watched in tense silence. Inside the Council chamber, Ambassador Wright stood with the alien representatives. If they wanted to destroy us, she told them, they could have done so already. The fact that they're willing to talk is a good sign. The Veluxian looked uncertain. Can we trust these ancient beings? I don't know, Wright replied honestly. But I trust Morrison. Inside the ancient ship, Morrison and Blackwell found themselves in a vast chamber that seemed to shift and change around them. There were no solid walls or floors, only patterns of energy and light that moved like living things. A form appeared before them, not solid but a swirling pattern of light that vaguely resembled a humanoid shape. You have returned, a voice said in their minds, after we withdrew to avoid conflict. Morrison stepped forward. We didn't know you existed until now. Our return was to save the galaxy from what we thought was a natural disaster. The dark. Flow is our home now, the being explained. A dimension between dimensions where we have watched and waited. The Council feared you would become like us, beings who evolved beyond physical form. They exiled you to prevent this. And now? Morrison asked. Now you have indeed evolved, though differently than we did. You bend space and time. You create pocket universes. You are becoming what the Council feared. Morrison thought carefully before responding. We didn't come to fight. We came to help. The being seemed to consider this. There is a greater threat approaching, one beyond this galaxy. We have seen it. The Council races cannot face it alone. Then let us work together, Morrison suggested. Humans, Council races, and your people. 3 different paths of evolution, 3 different perspectives. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the being said, perhaps this is why you were meant to return. Not for revenge, but for alliance. When Morrison's shuttle returned to the Resilience 6 hours later, the containment field had been deactivated. The ancient ship had moved away from the dark flow, now visible to all. On the Council station, a historic agreement was signed. After 800,000 years of exile, humanity was officially welcomed back into galactic society. The ancient beings, who called themselves the Watchers, emerged from their seclusion to join the alliance as well. As Ambassador Wright signed the document on behalf of Earth, she caught the eye of the Veluxian leader across the table. You feared us once, she said quietly. Was it worth it? The Veluxian's large eyes blinked slowly. Perhaps not. But without that fear, without that exile, would you have become what you needed to be for this moment? Wright had no answer, but as she looked out at the stars through the station's viewport, she knew that humanity's long journey home had been worth every step. The prophecy had been fulfilled. The exiled ones had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again.